Hi everyone, this is Naren's Live with MS. I am Naren, and welcome to Travel Diaries, episode 1, 2, 3, or 4. One of those two. But, right, so like I mentioned yesterday, this is also going to be part of my leg series where I talk about certain things that, happened with my legs, especially my left leg. That's the weaker one. During our travel to the United States, and so this time, because yesterday I talked quite a bit about my knee, I actually had the decision whether to go up or to go down on my leg, and I decided to go up because talking about my feet and you know all of the different parts is definitely, if it's definitely going to be a much longer video, so I'll just talk about my hips. And let's be honest, nobody's hips lie and neither do mine. But like unfortunately, unlike a lot of people, my hips don't exactly tell the nicest things. And by that, I mean, I generally tend to have a problem a lot with my hip flexors, especially in terms of, how my hips tend to move, especially when exposed to, extreme weather conditions. Now, when I talk about my travel to the US, yes, it wasn't, the weather conditions weren't extreme by any means, but at least according to my body, living where I live, anything below 20 degrees Celsius, above 28 degrees Celsius is considered extreme. So in that way, yeah, my hips were, my hip flexors especially were not behaving according to what they're supposed to do. And it also, and I do recall that in the colder places, the colder weather, New York, Boston, and of course Chicago, I actually felt that there was a little more, almost like it had jammed my hips, and it was becoming a lot more difficult to move. And it almost ended up, especially on my left side, that you know where I was where with my right leg I was actually able to still lift, my hip flexors still work to the extent that I could lift my leg, bend at my hip so that I could pull my leg up. That was not happening on my left side. So I was, you can almost say, if you can see over here, this is my right side, this is my left side. If I'm doing this, if I'm taking a step that's like going up and over, my my left leg is kind of doing this kind of motion where my left leg is not moving on its own volition, and I'm just tilting my hips forward on my left side. So that was, definitely not the funnest of things. And as a result, I ended up spending a lot more time than I really wanted to, sitting in the wheelchair, and being carted around, which of course is, fun at certain things, but the it's way more fun when you get the chance to explore, you get the chance to walk around. And so that became a one thing that definitely did not, was not very fun during the trip. Also, another thing that I did want to mention is, considering my condition right now, where generally if I hold on to something like a wall or another person, I actually feel a little better, I'm walking a little better. That was also the case with, had I used the wheelchair as a walker. um, would I have been able to walk? um, I would say that my right leg was functioning as normal, and I think it would have done even better if I was holding on to the walking chair. But with my left leg, I still felt like the ground clearance that is really expected, and that only stemming from the fact that my hip flexor wasn't working. It wasn't high enough. I could still feel my shoes scraping the ground or the floor when I would try to lift my leg. So that is one thing that I did want to mention in regards to what was happening with my hip flexors. But you know I do want to turn it over to you, whether you have issues with your hip flexors, and what are certain things that you do. I mean, usually one thing that I always do, or at least I try to do at all times, is to kind of stretch out my hip flexors, at least get a little bit of the stagnant blood flowing, just to ensure that it's not turning stiff. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is just as a result of my hip flexors not performing properly, there also ends up being quite a bit of pain and stiffness that suddenly starts building up, right? Especially in the area where there's no movement or there's stagnation of any kind. So that was one thing I did want to say. But I am always open to reading your comments as to what you end up doing, and any helpful tips that I could try when I'm actually experiencing something like issues with my hip flexors. I mean, I definitely know that there are certain things that I need to start doing. There are certain body parts that I need to take a little more care of now that I'm back home, and the weather is more agreeable to my body, and hopefully I do get to the point of doing that. I think I'm still recovering with a little bit of jet lag. I mean, I'm sleeping majority of the time um, at night, but usually towards the end of the day, around the 7-8 p.m. mark, and that is usually when I still have calls. I suddenly start feeling a wave of fatigue just like setting in, and almost forcing me to at least take a 5 to 20 minute nap. Right, today's nap went to 40 minutes. So but that is what is happening. So I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, today's vlog. Definitely do give your hips I mean, not hips, tips um, and tricks, and of course helpful hints as to how I can make my left hip flexors a little more mobile, and make it so that I can actually be able to have a little more fun by walking around, maybe even dancing around a little more than I currently do, which isn't enough for me. But yeah, that's what I have for today. I hope you enjoyed your Tuesday. And um, as an outro, I just want to say that I'm Naren. This has been Naren's Life with MS. You are part of the Travel Hangover Diaries series, and I hope you are enjoying this series. And if you do have any um, comments about that as well, or insights to pretty much provide, so that I can make the content much more flavorful, much more engaging, please don't hesitate to drop that comment as well, so with that we can start that conversation. So with that said, have a great night, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, and of course a great Wednesday as well. Bye.